everybody. Thank you for coming sort of late in the afternoon when it's often quite tempting to drift away and find something to do in the centre. But anyway, lovely to see so many of you, and I hope we can... There's one more seat down here and maybe a few others. Yeah, there's one down here, so very much welcome. Are we ready, guys, at the back to start? All right, let's go then. Okay, well, our topic today, I'm Carol, by the way, and this is, but I don't, there are, yeah, I'll let you manage that, shall I? This is Adem. This is Adem Soris, the second author of this presentation. So today we're going to talk about how to manage individual differences in the language classroom. And so just to make the point that kind of historically, we have, much of the research for language learning has been looking for commonalities, things that all of the students have in common, universal factors, such as, of course, the inevitable universal grammar and behaviorism and structuralism and all the other isms, and which is not, of course, to say that these are not important. Of course they are and have been, and we have all used them over the years in our teaching. However, they always tended to assume that individuals are the same. And of course, I'm assuming I'm talking to an audience of teachers. We all know that that is absolutely not the case, right? That we have a class full of individuals, and somehow we, as the teacher, we have to manage this. So, yes. So Adem's, yes, exactly. I'm sorry, I've lost my place a bit. I'm not quite in my stride yet, as you can tell. If language learning is going to have to be successful, we have to learn to deal with these factors, which are actually generated from within individuals. And Adem is now going to deal with various individual differences, and we're going to draw here on a book that we have been writing with Multilingual Matters about individual differences, and we will draw on some of the examples that we have gathered in the process of researching this book. And okay, I will hand it over now to Adem.
Okay, thanks. Welcome to our presentation. I'll briefly talk about the individual variables, individual learning differences. The first one is age. As you all know from the literature, since 1950s, since 1967, Landberg's critical period hypothesis, there is a kind of pessimistic perspective arguing that language learning is difficult or sometimes impossible to learn because of the critical period. And in this, especially after critical period, which is usually reckoned to be around puberty. But in the last decade, in 2015 also, with a special issue of Applied Linguistics journal, there are many research studies accumulating that the argument is that old people can also learn. So there is no passive. Mature. Okay. So this is what we also found in our case studies. Olga from Russia and Mariam from Syria, both of whom managed to be fluent in Turkish after immigrating to Turkey. So we argue that we should adopt a can-do approach. We should adopt that approach because mature people can also learn languages. Okay. Number two, the second variable is that race, ethnicity, all these nationality, culture, all are confused, all overlap. But which this does not necessarily mean that they are identical. And in our case study as well, also this is what we found. Anna and Hakim, who a couple, Turkish couple, who emigrated to Australia, and they were able to avoid some of the culture shock because at the time of arrival they were fluent in the language. although they were worried about finances, worried about food, or especially Hakim had difficulty in making friends. So we argue that an adequate level of knowledge in the L2 in English might avoid culture shock. The third variable is personality. That is known as a relatively stable construct, characteristic, which makes people different from each other, which also accounts for patterns of behavior, affect, cognition, that they are all distinctive of our particular individuality, personality. And according to personality, according to the literature, introvert speakers, introvert people are known or argued to be more fluent, much better than extrovert speakers or personality types. But in our case study, as well as including my study, we found that there is little or no evidence that one personality type is superior to the other, or one personality type is much better than. So the dichotomies, to some extent, collapse. So introverts might be more successful, of course, but the evidence is not that strong. Style, learning style is defined as an individual's preferred way of learning. And according to, again, the research study also, the book, in our book, the more successful students. Sorry, that is your study, Carol, right? Learning style stretching. Yeah, that is your study, sorry. In Carol's study, more successful students reported more style types than less successful students. So there might be a level of style stretching. So what, as teachers, we should do is that we should provide classroom, appropriate classroom environment in which students can embody different styles. Different styles can flourish, can flower up in the activities that we provide, as possible as we can, of course. And strategies, that is since 1975, Rubin's seminal article. This has been defined, discussed, debated, and by many researchers, scholars, including Carol Griffiths, as an expert in the field of second language learning strategy issue, defining, this is Carol's definition, defining language learning strategies as actions, number one, actions, number two, chosen, number three, by the learners, and number four, for the purpose of learning language. So it has different characteristics, and this definition was made before in 2015 in IATEFL journal, and recently in Applied Linguistics journal by Carol Griffiths in 2019. So strategies are divided into cognitive, metacognitive strategies, including affective and social strategies. In Pacey Chan's also case, as well as in other case studies, strategies work, strategies are helpful. But I want to talk about my own story. In Turkey, one of my colleagues, also Kenan, is here. In Turkey, as academics, we are required to take a language test other than English or Turkish. So with Kenan, we took French test, although we have never received any kind of formal, informal instruction on French. And after a few trials, although we have never received any instruction, we were able to manage from the language test taking more than 70 out of 100. This was a success, of course. We are proud of that. Of course, this test has some limitations. It is a multiple choice test measuring receptive knowledge, ignoring oracy, productive knowledge. But still, I am sure that this is also due to the use of language learning strategies. That is what I used. So I used that, and I tested it, and I believe it. By the way, Carol also took that test. Her score is more than 87. as she's expert.
87.5.
Okay, she's expert, that's why. So implication is that classroom context should be in a way that students should get some strategy knowledge, strategy instruction should be given. And autonomy has been defined as the ability to manage one's own learning and learner-centered approaches. As you also heard a lot in the other seminars, in the other lectures, learner-centered approaches, the advent of them has made the autonomy as a construct, as an individual learner variable, very popular. In IATEFL's study, in our book as well, the more successful learners in her study expressed their autonomy by means of taking practice tests, following after class activities, engaging in independent study, using their free time to study. So as teachers, we should not only encourage, also we should let them to exercise the autonomy, either providing them studying vocabulary through corpus-based activities or through dictionary studies or different types of activities. I mean, autonomy might be improved and it will be more helpful. Beliefs is something which individuals hold to be true and derives from our experiences to which personal meanings are assigned, are attached. And beliefs are sometimes assumed to vary according to context. But in Fan, Wu, China, and Ziad Tajuddin's study, in different contexts, beliefs were found remarkably similar, even in quite different contexts. So we argue that although beliefs are often assumed to be reasonably stable, we should encourage flexibility as well as improve beliefs, because that is what we attribute our personal meanings. So that is important for individual learner difference. Affect, that is another construct, another variable. Feelings, emotions ignored. This is also in line with second language acquisition theories, Kresh's affective filter hypothesis. When we sometimes as teachers use this finger, right? You did this mistake. After an exam, we like giving advice. You should study more. You should study for the exams. This is your fault. We generally like sometimes. This is not for everyone. I mean, for me. I'm just taking myself as an example. Finding a scapegoat, it is sometimes easier for me. But when students become more, worried, when they feel more anxious, their success reduces. So this has been also established in two further studies in context, such as in Ertuğrul's study, Cidegü's study. More anxious students did not do as well as the less anxious students in Ertuğrul's study. Same in Cidegü's study. And implication is that we should maintain a positive, affective atmosphere in order to promote learning, positive learning environment in the classroom. This is important. Aptitude is usually defined in terms of natural ability, but there is still much controversy regarding how to measure it, how important it as a factor, of course. There have been numerous exceptional language learners in the field, you can see, but we interviewed in our study, we interviewed with Andrew Cohen, and he has aptitude, right, Carol?
Yeah,
you have talked to him.
He's got 13 languages, so not bad, eh? Yes.
And Gökhan is another case in your research.
Yes, well, Gökhan is Turkish from his name. He hasn't got 13, but he did get an IELTS band 9. And those of you who know the IELTS know that that's reckoned to be native speaker. From speaking, right? Overall, wow. So he attributes this success to autonomous way of learning, right? His way of own learning.
Yes. Rather than aptitude.
Rather than aptitude, exactly.
Okay. He's also a good example for
a different attitude, I right, one is wrong, of course, but they are quite old. They are, yeah, we can't say one is right, one is wrong, sorry. But they are different. They are different in the way they approach it. Actually, quite an interesting one that I wouldn't mind following up by more research, in fact, which one might be more right or more wrong, whether one is really more apt or whether it's Gurkhan who reckons really that he just put in hours and hours and hours of plain hard work. And which one actually is more important? Yeah. I'll let you finish.
Okay. So the almost the last construct is motivation. So it is commonly known, commonly believed to be the most important factor for success in language learning. It drives investment, time, and effort as well. It is also dynamic and complex. In Tugan's study, he investigated his students' motivation in terms of traditional dichotomies, and he found that the highest median was given to instrumental motivation. However, also it was intrinsic motivation, wanting to do something for its own sake. That was also most strongly correlated with success.
That's another very interesting one, which might be worth further inquiry for those of you who might be looking for research. I mean, it was quite clear that they gave instrumental. You know, I want a good job. I want more money. That was the motivation that they gave, which was the strongest. But the one that came out as being most strongly correlated with success was intrinsic. I got that right, didn't I? Yes. Okay. So, I mean, it seems to me that there is a misfit in there, which I have always intended to do more with. And maybe one of these days I will, or maybe one of you might be interested to take it up.
Okay. So this is instrumental motivation. This is also what we also found when we compared a study. We were investigating English as lingua franca, and we collected data from Turkey and from New Zealand, from two countries, and we similarly found that instrumental motivation plays pivotal role because of the lingua franca context. Speakers, different speakers, non-native speakers use English to communicate. To communicate for communicative purposes. So implication, of course, is that we should do everything possible to keep motivation high of our students. This is how we should do it. I mean, we can discuss it in the Q&A session after this. So the last construct variable is sex and gender. So this is commonly believed that females are better language learners. Wow. Than males. Okay. Although consistent research evidence has proven elusive. I mean, this is yes, this is still debatable. At a university in Turkey, Ertuğrul, in our also case, found that the female students significantly outperformed the males in terms of exam scores. This can also be attributed to psycholinguistic or neurolinguistic gains, declarative procedural memory. But this is the reality. At another Turkish university, however, Yusuf discovered a high pass rate for the final exam among his male students. So you see, when drawing distinctions, we should, pay more attention. Care needs to be taken to avoid oversimplification and unproductive generalizations, according to Sunderland. So Carol will complete the rest.
Okay, thank you, Adem. Okay, so I'm going to spend the last few minutes talking about a study that we did with our students, and so the question then is, which of the factors, which Adem has gone through very thoroughly, which is most important? So we're going to, as I say, present this small-scale study, and this is it. We did it in 2 stages in Istanbul, in Turkey. The first stage was I had a group of, there were 12 practicing teachers, K-12 teachers. There were 9 females and 3 males, and 3 were in their 20s and 9 were 30 plus, so getting a bit more mature. Experience, well, that varied all the way from 4 years to 28 years, so quite a wide range there. The second group was a group of preparation teachers, student teachers at a university in Istanbul. 22 females, 7 males, 28 were in their 20s, and just 1 was 30 plus. And, okay, the instrument, I'll go over these fairly quickly because time's rushing by. But if you want to know more about it, please leave our emails at the end. And anyway, but as briefly as I can, we constructed a questionnaire using the 11 factors that we had identified, gender and so on. And we asked, did a Likert scale, 5-point Likert scale, and so on. Yeah, okay. How we analyzed the data. There were, first of all, we did a seminar to make sure all the factors were understood, as one does, as one should. We got permission for doing it. The ethics were very important. We analyzed, and the analysis, we got the reliability came out to alpha just on 0.7, and we analyzed for medians and what was it, differences? Yes, okay, all right. And so the results. Now I'm going to go over, skip over this one, Dim. Can we have the table?
The median.
Oh no, go back, please. Okay, I'm going to ask you a question in case you all want to sleep. What do you reckon? Which was the most important one? Anyone got a hypothesis, please? Which was the most important of these factors, if you can remember them? Age and gender and personality. What was the most important one? Which? Okay. Anyone really sure? Yes, I think I did hear it. All right, it was motivation, which of course is pretty well known, isn't it, I suppose, that motivation is the be-all and end-all, the sine qua non, as it is sometimes called. And you can see here on the table, so the overall median was 5, but both the practicing teachers and the trainee teachers, in other words, all of them, said that motivation was the most important. And I mean, I guess we all know that, but it's actually quite nice to sort of see it in figures. And as apart from that, as you can see down the overall medians, the strategies were 5. So they're also very important. But notice that the trainee teachers gave it a higher rating as the 5 than the practicing teachers. Reasons for that might be a bit interesting. The practicing teachers thought it was the positive beliefs and autonomy and also affect that was, so they sort of went more for, affective factors as really the really important ones, and they showed up.
Because they are practiced.
I guess so, yeah, yes, hopefully that's it. But notice that the trainee teachers thought that the strategies they gave them a rating of 5. So the reasons for that might be interesting to pursue. Why would they come out with such a, is it perhaps because, there's been a lot of talk about strategies, hasn't there, in recent years? And maybe they are more aware? I don't know, but an interesting one if someone's looking for a research, an area of research. Okay, and what did we get next? Is it
Differences.
Yes, the differences. Well, perhaps I've already sort of mentioned those, really. The trainee teachers, significantly stronger agreement about aptitude. Experienced teachers were more strongly in agreement about the affective factors. There were no significant differences according to gender, which was perhaps interesting and accords with other things we've said. The younger group was significantly more in agreement about the importance of aptitude and strategies and age. Okay. So there were some interesting findings there. Overall, of course, the fact is, as I think we said right at the beginning, that this is holistic, that you have your class, okay, and your class is, if you like, a unit, but within that there are individuals, and these individuals must be heard and must be attended to. But interestingly also, it's not just that. Learner identity is also situated, and there's a lot of literature about this, people like Bonnie Norton, for instance, who've written a lot on that kind of a theme. So it varies from place to place. But also, I think perhaps it's a bit under-researched is the idea of the goal orientation, that it depends a lot on what they're doing, doesn't it? You can't really just say they are either have aptitude or they haven't. It depends on what they're doing and what they want to do. And yeah. So in conclusion, we have to say that we need a holistic view, that learners are multifaceted, they are not just one, they are complex, they are dynamic, they are situated, they are goal-oriented, and the teacher has to juggle all of this. This is our job. And there are times that it is a great joy, and there are times, frankly, when, of course, I'm sure you would all know, when it has its problems. Perhaps I think we need to start with an awareness just of the scale of the job, and I'm not sure that that is always understood and appreciated. But hopefully we might have further studies along these lines to contribute to this awareness. And thank you for your attention. Okay. I think we have about 3 minutes. I have someone keeps coming in with pieces of white paper. Okay. If anyone has a question.